Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Josh Thomas here. He is a serial entrepreneur and sales consultant who works with service-based small businesses to help them double their revenues in months, not years. A seasoned veteran with 15 plus years of experience, his methods are directly responsible for more than $100 million in sales and revenue among the 2,500 entrepreneurs across 30 industries with whom he has worked with. A former teacher with a passion for creating clarity of complex ideas, Josh is the host of a popular podcast on productivity for entrepreneurs called The Do Zone. And we're going to get into this later. But the Do Zone it aims to annihilate procrastination and complacency through common sense guidance from some of the best minds in the world. He has also created a personality profile assessment called the Do Zone DNA, which helps entrepreneurs understand how they tick so they can build the world around them for peak performance and productivity. But Josh, welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, you got it, Philip. Now that I'm listening to that bio, it's pretty long.
Yeah, I've had one that was a lot longer than that. I didn't think it was. Yeah, as I was kind of reading it, I'm like, That's a little lengthy, but it's not
That's a
too
lot of
bad, man."
words. That's a lot
But
of words. Yeah,
yeah, so I had
usually when I get a
somebody.
big long one like that, I'll chop it down to like 2 sentences. I'm like, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah, I had to do that
Enough
the other
spotlight.
day. Yeah. Usually, yeah, I probably read a little bit too much, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. So I want to make sure it was kind of hard to figure out what to cut out. But there was one person that they probably had triple the bio that you had
Yeah.
there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I cut out a
When I
lot.
was 12 years old, my mom took me to the circus. And when I saw the clowns, I got freaked out and I went home and cried about it. Yeah. We don't need that level of info in your bio,
And
man.
this is what I teach on now: is how to get over
Yeah.
over the
Clown
fear of clowns.
avoidance.
Exactly. But if you guys don't know, Josh, it can be a jokester. He loves to joke around, have fun, but he also is very productive. Fellow Apex member as well. No, I didn't mention that, but great guy all around. But Josh, tell us a little bit more about yourself, man. Let's get a little bit of background story on you. I'm thinking that maybe that 12-year-old clown thing is actually you. I'm wondering.
Well, everything's a metaphor, Philip.
Yeah.
No, so the most interesting thing, and I think this relates to your topic pretty well, is I have a degree in music. I went and taught high school band for 6 years, and I thought that was a good job. I really enjoyed it. It was very fulfilling, and I was very proud of it. And I got to this point to where it no longer fulfilled me. It no longer gave me what I felt like I could get out of life. But I kept doing it anyway because it was comfortable.
Mm.
And, at some point it became compulsory for me to get out of that comfort zone and try something else. And so I got out and I tried to become an entrepreneur and I failed at that miserably. But I didn't quit. And with each step that I took, with each failure, with each face smack, I got just a little bit better and I got just a little more confidence. And I won't say that it was a linear rise by any means. I did a bunch of really stupid stuff and I did a bunch of things wrong. And I had a lot of head trash mindset issues that were basically unchecked for more than a decade. And those cost me 10 years of my life because I couldn't get over myself and push past wherever I was comfortable to get to that next level, whatever it is. And the way that I relate that to public speaking is, for anybody in your audience right now who's listening, if I were to ask the question, raise your hand if you are terrified of speaking in public, like 90+% of the hands will go up. We're not going to see them because it's a podcast and it's audio, but like the majority of people listening to this right now are probably like, yeah, dude, I am terrified. I get up there, and I practice and then I get nervous and then it just flops and then I'm just not made for this. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So what do we do about that? What's the solution? Are you really just not made for it? Are the people that you see up on a stage, are they just born that way? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think the reason that people can get up on a stage and command their presence and not make too many errors and really captivate you is because they do it all the time. Is because they went through that period of suck and they embraced it and they just got up again and again and again with the broken nose, with the black eye, with the cast on their arm. Nope, I'm not going to let this beat me. On the contrary, I'm going to beat it and I'm going to dominate it. And that's the only real difference between somebody sitting here right now, like, no way am I ever going to get up on a stage, and somebody who says, just give me the microphone. I'll figure it out.
And that's exactly entrepreneurship, not the microphone, but let me figure it out. Just give me the problem. I'll figure out how to solve it. I'll figure out how to get around and build this product, whatever it is, but it's about figuring it out. And I love that. So I'll just kind of make sure I told you about the question at the beginning, but I'll just ask it again and make sure we got it all covered. But how did you get over the fear of public speaking?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, you asked me a different question, so that's why I answered that
Well,
question.
that is true. I did word it a little bit different.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So here's the interesting thing about this, and we were talking about this at some point in the past, and I really appreciated that you drew this out of me, Philip, because I recently got up on a stage in front of about 450 people. And that was a pretty big deal for me. Not the first time I've been on a stage, not the first time I've been on a big stage, but it was the first time that I'd ever walked up on a stage where it was just me and a microphone and 20 minutes. No slides, nothing, just me and a microphone for 20 minutes. And I remember looking, it was at this event that a company that I've consulted with for several years, and I was looking at the agenda, and there it was, like I'm sitting there, that's my name, and that's a lot of time. What the hell am I going to do? And so I thought, well, maybe I should write a script. I should memorize the script. But then I realized, no, you know what? I don't need a script, because I've been preparing for this for a long time, and I just didn't realize it. And so how do you get over your fear of public speaking? Well, I kind of alluded to it earlier. Well, you got to do it. How do you run a marathon? How do you train for a marathon? You go out there and you start running, and just don't stop until you've gotten to 26.2 miles. That's how you do.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. But ultimately, you just got to get out there and run enough to where you've built up that tolerance. And speaking and public appearances is no different. And so there are a couple of things that I can point to that were fundamental in my ability to go and stand up on a stage and speak by myself in front of 450 people for 20 minutes. And I crushed it, by the way. I'm not like a super ego-driven guy, and I try to be as humble as I can, but dude, I freaking crushed it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to toot that horn every once in a while, man. If you're too humble, then you're going to lose that confidence. So I mean, toot it. You toot away. So that's awesome.
Man. Get the tooting. And so there's a couple of things that really stood out for me as I reflected on this, and then through our conversation, it really drew it out. First and foremost, I've run some form of a podcast for years. I had another one called How to Lose Money. We did 238 episodes of that. Nice. And that was 4 years of my life. And before I interviewed the very first person I ever interviewed, his name was Wayne, I don't know, Wayne something. I forget his last name, but Wayne something. Yeah, I'm never going to remember it. But it was the very first interview, and it was so awkward. And it was so challenging. And I had a script in front of me. I was
Mm.
literally reading questions off of a script for an interview. And it was
Oh.
terrifying. Like, what if I get it wrong? What if I get the tone wrong? Like, who's editing this? Can you cut that out? Uh, and and so I was really worried about that. But about 20 or 30 episodes in, I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. And about 200 episodes in, I didn't need the script. I didn't need to figure out what question I was going to ask next, because I had gotten those reps in so much that I'm just going to play off of the energy that I'm given. And that is entertaining enough. And it was. So step number one was get a lot of reps in a non-intimidating environment. Nobody's watching you do a podcast.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching you have a conversation on Zoom. But lead that conversation and exercise leading. And then the second thing is baby steps. So when you and I were talking, what I realized was I've been preparing for this in increments for years. And the first part of the preparation was just go and do it, interview people, okay, get that confidence leading conversations. And then this year, I started a new podcast called The Do Zone. And I'm putting out 2 episodes a week. One of them's an interview and another one's a solo. And the solo is where I just have a prompt. There's no script. It's just me and a prompt, like one phrase, one sentence, one word. And I'm challenging myself to create a 10 to 15 minute episode of me just talking about that prompt. And the first few times that I did it, it was not good. But I kept going. And the more that I did it, the better I got at it. And every once in a while, I would just kind of like, I don't really know what to say about this, but I'm just going to keep going anyway. I'm just going to put it out. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's raw. It's real. It's me.
Yeah.
Also, I was getting a lot of practice. And I was getting a lot of practice taking a couple of words and turning it into some big ideas. A couple of words into some big ideas. And it was that ultimately, the practice, the repetition of every single week, I take a couple of words and I turn them into some big ideas in one take. And however it comes out is how it comes out. That's what prepared me when I was going up on the stage. I got those butterflies, like everybody does. But the thing that really gave me comfort was this is no different than the 25 other times I've done this already this year. It's just that people are watching me now. Yeah. And that's what ultimately gave me the confidence to go up there and crush it.
I love it. And I want to dissect that last part. And this is something I've been thinking about here recently. And I'm actually getting ready to go up to 2 episodes. So interview and a solo episode as well, because I need to get more of those reps in as well. We all need to continue to get those reps in. But I actually got thinking about it because all the social media platforms now are pushing these reels. And you think about that, if you're only doing 30 seconds to a minute video, while that's challenging to get something, if you can get something very beneficial that gives a lot of knowledge to your audience, it's very impressive, but it also makes it where you never expand upon your topics, whatever that topic is. Like you said, like, okay, I've got 2 words. And if you wanted to come up with a couple sentences and have a 30-second video, that's easy. You can do it all day long. But to come up with a 10 or 15 or 20-minute talk about 2 words or a sentence, that's challenging at first. And that's actually why I mean, there's a couple other reasons why I'm not going to Toastmasters anymore, but why I wanted to expand upon Toastmasters or go outside of Toastmasters, because most of the speeches in Toastmasters, while it's a great foundation, I recommend it to anybody trying to get into public speaking. Most of the speeches are only 5 to 7 minutes long. So you get prepared and you get used to timing yourself for a 5 to 7 minute speech and only expanding so much on a story, and you could cover that fairly easily. But trying to get to 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, and when you're only used to doing 5 to 7, it's like running that marathon. I was only used to running a mile, but now I've got to run 26.2.
Mm.
I'm going to be gassed probably by 2, if not 5 at the most miles, because I'm not used to that. So it's the same thing with speaking. So I like that you brought that up. I know you weren't exactly going there, but that's something that's
No.
been on my mind. It's something I think is great.
Well, yeah, it's exactly where I was going, because if I hadn't started that exercise of recording myself just talking and ad-libbing for a long period of time and doing
Mhm.
that at least once a week for months, walking up onto that stage, I would have written a script and I would have tried to memorize that script, and I would have gotten lost at some point due to nerves, or somebody coughed, or a microphone cut out, or I've got distracted and I would have lost my place.
Yeah.
I would have been flushed in the face and embarrassed. Like, dang it, I'm just never going to get it right.
Yeah.
And that would have discouraged me.
Hmm. Or as well, you mentioned about the PowerPoint too. I mean, if you have that PowerPoint, well, you don't have every single word about what your speech is, but it gives you these little things that you can look at and say, oh, yeah, okay, this picture, this image, I need to talk about this. Okay, these couple words, okay, that gives me my next idea to talk about. And you can go through your PowerPoint and it gives you cues to be able to speak on. So it's good. It's better than literally having notes on your phone. Okay, let me read my notes and I'll talk a little bit, read my notes again and talk. Definitely better. But what happens? Yeah, technology goes out. What are you gonna do then? You're prepared to speak based on that PowerPoint presentation, not, hey, I've got this idea. I'm gonna talk on productivity. Okay, and you just talk about it. And I know you could talk about that forever, but it could be any subject. But if you're not prepared to talk about that for 20 to 30 minutes based on just knowing, hey, I'm going to talk about this to this audience, you're going to have some trouble if technology goes out on that stage. Now, usually they'll get it up pretty quick. Usually the technology isn't that messed up. Obviously, PowerPoint presentations, you want to have a backup, things prepared just in case. But yeah, I do like that. I think that's a great way for you to be able to prepare yourself and be able to be more successful on that stage by just having it essentially memorized and being able to just speak off the cuff, if you will. But I know it's
There's,
prepared because you've been prepping for it the whole time, not just like, I'm just going to come up here and speak. Kind of more so when you're in a normal conversation. Like, I don't prep for every conversation I have with my wife. I mean, that'd be really annoying and very difficult.
yeah.
Though, so, but that's off the cuff, if you will. But going up on that stage, while it could be technically off the cuff, it's not, because you've had a lot of practice going into it.
And you're exactly right. A kind of like third bonus tip, I guess, if you will, that you would add to this is get on a panel.
Mm,
Um, there's 5, 6, 7 other people on the stage with you. Come in and demonstrate some level of expertise in some topic, and get yourself on a panel to where not all of the eyes are on you all of the time, but you get a feel for the heat and the brightness of the lights, the pressure, the noises, the distractions, the nerves. You get a feel for that, but the pressure is dissipated across a larger group. Get yourself on a couple of panels, participate, answer a question or two. Hey, I can answer that. Grab the mic, say some stuff, whatever. And then when you get an opportunity, lead a panel, because now more eyes are on you because you're leading the panel, but the panel is still carrying the discussion. So it takes the pressure off. And
mm,
so it's kind of, you're slowly elevating yourself in that stress and pressure level, but in a way that you can manage. And once you've led a couple of panels, then maybe you get an opportunity for somebody to hand you the mic and just do your own thing. That's ultimately what happened for me. I wasn't ever looking for an opportunity to speak on a stage. It just happened. And it happened in the most organic, natural way. It was the next logical step for me with this particular organization. But the only reason that I was successful, aside from my preparation, was the fact that I kind of went through the ranks. I had been on a panel in that group several times. I had led a couple of panels in that group a few times. And then going up by myself that was the next thing left,
mm.
aside from buying the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of just an analogy to relate this. It's kind of like getting exposure to it. So you see a race car, you're kind of watching it. Then you maybe start studying some of the race car drivers. Then you finally sit in that passenger seat and riding with them. You're hearing the engine, you're feeling the rev of the motor and the vibrations and everything. And then finally you get behind the seat to drive. It kind of sort of like that, just to throw out a random analogy with that. But I do like that. I was going to ask you how you got through that progression, but it was your client essentially. Have you spoken on any other stages, and how did you get on those stages? If you've spoken on any others?
I have made some dinner presentations
Okay.
to 100 plus people, and I have done that by myself. And that was really interesting. But people are a lot more willing to pay attention to you when you're buying them steaks.
Yeah. That helps a lot.
Yeah, when when you're paying like a $12,000 dinner bill, they're like, yeah, man, okay, what's he have to say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
So that's
always
that's
helpful.
another way that you can get some practice. Buy everybody dinner, you know, and they will be captivated by you. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that counts for family members, but maybe you get some friends together, do that. Yeah, that's a great way. I think friends
Yeah.
would be very willing to do that. Yeah, steak and lobsters. All right, I'm there.
And I think what's more important than I wouldn't consider myself a professional speaker or a motivator or anything like that. I got a story to tell. I got a message to share. And that's what drives me, not
Mm,
getting on a stage, not
mhm.
being a speaker. You have to have some kind of purpose.
Yeah.
It can't just be, oh, I want to get on a stage and tell my, whatever. You have to have some compelling reason for people to want to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
And that has to be the thing that drives you to that stage, not the act of getting on a stage. And once you really shift your mind about that, the nerves go away. I had somebody put it to me this way because I was nervous. The feeling was there. And Andrew Carlson, a friend of mine, suggests that fear and excitement come from the same place. And you can actually control if you're afraid, you can actually control that feeling and trick your brain into believing it's excitement. And
Mm,
what happens when you are sensing fear is it releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone.
mhm.
When you sense excitement, it releases, I believe, dopamine and adrenaline and all these other things that like hype you up and make you feel good. And what you have to do is you have to tell yourself when you feel afraid, no, actually, this is excitement. And because that's what happened to me. I got up, I'm standing on this stage, and that old familiar feeling, everybody knows it, it started creeping in. But the thing that got me over it immediately, aside from my training and preparation, the thing that got me over it immediately was the fact that I knew in my heart, in my head, I knew that this audience needed to hear this message. This message was handcrafted for you, and I need to get it out. And that's more important than my fear.
Mm. Yeah,
And so I
and
was
I
able to channel it.
yeah, that's great. And I talk a lot about how it's not about you, it's about your audience. The reason a lot of times why you have this fear is because you think everybody's thinking about you. They want to know what's in it for them, really. So if you can focus on them and make sure that you're bringing them the value versus the fact that, hey, I'm on the stage, I'm great, or I hope I'm great and I hope I don't mess up, you're going to do well, or at least you're not going to do terrible. And the other thing as well is I have people come to me all the time. They're like, hey, I want to get on stage. You kind of led right into this. You have to have something to talk about because I've had people that are like, yeah, I want to be on stage. All right, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. Oh, well, who's gonna
Stages.
have? Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
talk about stages.
yeah, yeah. I want to be on stage. Okay, yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's admirable. It's a goal. It's definitely something that's challenging, something that's cool to be able to get in front of a group of people and speak. But if you have nothing to share with them, hey, you have no value to give them, they're not going to want you there. We're not all Andy Frisellas and Ed Milet's and Tony Robbins who have done amazing things in this world and built businesses to be able to talk about those things. And sometimes that's what it is. You built something. but it's either you've built something or you have a story to share. You can't just say, I have a goal to be on stage, and people are just like, yeah, come on down, Philip. Come on down, Josh. Yeah, it'd be great to have you here to, I don't know what you're going to talk about, but yeah, let's get you on stage. Come on. Like, no, that's never going to happen.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's just,
Unless
it's
you're
amazing.
really, really pretty, which,
Yeah, you
I don't
may
know if
get
this is
that,
a
but
visual podcast, but, guys, we don't have a chance, man.
nah, we don't. We don't. But hey, let's shift directions a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the do zone. So why'd you get into that, or how'd you get into that, and creating the podcast around it and everything? Tell us a little bit about what the do zone is, besides what the obvious is, that it's about just doing the work, or doing it, getting in that do zone. So tell us a little about that.
I wanted to set out to scientifically prove that people who said that they were too busy are actually full of crap.
Mm.
And that's a real answer, by the way, because we get when it comes to being productive, a lot of times, if you ask somebody, hey, I'm not getting this done, I'm not sure how to, there's so many fires, I can't start any new fires because I'm too busy putting out the fires in front of me. I can't put any SOPs in place because I'm too busy running around making sure that, the business isn't falling over to its side or whatever. And so you'll ask somebody like, well, you'll ask somebody successful, what would you do? And they'll ask you a question like, well, how early are you getting up? 5:30. And they'll say, well, you should get up at 4:30. Like, all right. That actually happened, by the way. I'll leave the names out of it in the situation, but that actually happened recently.
Happened to
There's a
you, or
guy,
are you telling them?
it's a guy that I know,
Okay.
and he was asking somebody who really respected, how do I solve this problem? And the response was a question, well, how early are you getting up? And he said 5:30, and the answer was, well, get up at 4:30 because that's what you need to do. And there's some merit in that, but is that really solving the problem? Like, giving yourself more time, is that actually solving the problem? Or are you just not being productive with the time that you have? Because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. As human beings, you can't avoid it. The doctors have proven this very emphatically, that you need about 8 hours of sleep, just like everybody else, no matter what you think. And so putting in more time doesn't necessarily solve your problem. But that's the best advice that we get sometimes. You got to hustle.
Yeah.
You got to hustle, man. You're not hustling. You got to hustle. But more important than a hustle is, what are you doing with the time that you have? Are you hustling with that time? Or are you just messing around and then like, oh, I don't have time, even though you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning? Okay. And so what we had to do is we had to figure out, what does it actually mean to be doing something? Because I think the majority of us have some kind of vague, gooey definition of what it means to actually be productive and be doing something. And so I set out to define it. And here's what I came up with. There are 3 rules to being in the do zone. Okay. The first rule is you must be working on a relevant and current project. So this can't be something that's going to matter to you in 6 months, or some antiquated thing that is no longer useful. It has to be something that is relevant and current. It has to be a project that is relevant to what you're working on right now. Okay, that's the first rule. And if you check off that rule, then the next rule is the task you're performing must have an immediate and measurable outcome. Okay, so let's come up with an example. What's a project that you're working on right now, Philip?
Building a stage. So I try to get people in for my event.
Okay, you're building a stage. All right, so anything that you do that is related to building that stage, that passes rule number 1. And so recruiting people to be on that stage, that's a do zone. Talking to venues about securing dates, that's the do zone. right? Or at least that's rule number one. Okay.
Yeah.
Going and mowing your grass, not the do zone. Watching a video about how to do a better speech, not the do zone. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But the idea here is it has to be related to a relevant or current project. Number two, it has to have an immediate measurable outcome. And what I mean by that is when you're asking people, would you like to come and speak on my stage? They're going to say yes, or they're going to say no, or they're going to say, let me get back to you. And you can say, okay, when? That's immediate and measurable. When I ask you a question, you give me an answer, and I can measure whether you answered that question or not. I can measure that. Okay. What were my results? I talked to 10 people today. I got 4 people to say yes. I got 3 people to say no. I got 3 people that'll say, get back to me in 2 weeks. And the last rule, and this is where watching that video comes in. And this is the thing this is really where it all came from. This is where it all started. The task you're performing must be objectively observable by a third party. And I put that in place specifically to eliminate binge learning as the do zone. Because if you're sitting there and you bought some course on public speaking and you're like watching it and you're like, oh yeah, that's great. You're taking notes and all that. That's cool. You might think you're being productive, but me as the third party, what is it that you're actually doing? You're learning. I can't see you learn. I can see you write. I can see you watch, but I can't like crack open your skull and watch it process information. And so that doesn't count because learning is not action. Learning is preparation. It's motion. What I could see that's objectively observable is something you learned from that course that you bought, and then you stand up in front of a mirror and you practice that. That's the do zone, because I can objectively observe that. I can watch that happen. And so if you follow those 3 simple rules, a relevant and current project, something that it has an immediate and measurable outcome, and it's objectively observable by someone else, then that task that you're performing really will be action-oriented. It will lead to a result that you can measure right now, and that's going to push you forward. And that's what productivity is all about.
Yeah, that's going to move that needle forward for you versus, like you said, just watching the video. That doesn't necessarily move that needle forward. And I love that you've come up with that process, if you will, for the 3-step process to be in that do zone, because that's so important, especially that last one. So many people, myself included, have been there where I'm just absorbing, and I'm definitely in a place of taking action now, but I've been there for, okay, let me listen to this podcast. Okay, let me go watch this video. Let me learn this and read this book. And it's like, nothing's happening. I'm not getting anywhere. And then, of course, you're just like, why am I not getting anywhere? You start getting so frustrated. But when you think about it, yeah, you're not in that do zone. Yes, you're learning. Of course, you need to continue to learn to get better at your craft. But if that's all you're doing, you're not really going to get better. Just like at the beginning where we talked about the speech. If all you do is do a 30-second speech or 30-second video, you're not going to get yourself prepared to do that 30-minute presentation, that 30-minute speech. So you have to eventually get yourself to where you're doing the whole thing and not just part of it, or just listening and taking in. You have to actually put some output as well.
Rule number 3, the fact that did not exist and it was not in place for me cost me 10 years of my life. Rule number 3 took me 10 years to develop. It didn't take me 10 years. I sat on my ass and did nothing for 10 years and then realized how much time I wasted. And then I started doing work. And it's the most important thing, because as human beings, we are fact finders. It is in our nature to, let me make sure I have all the information that I need so that I can make the best possible decision. and it's a never-ending road. You're never going to get all the information that you need. You're just going to get older.
Yeah. Yeah. And I deal with that too in my personal life and work life and everything, that a lot of times you want to get information, you want to get all these questions answered, but a lot of times you don't even know what questions to ask because you don't know what's going to be relevant for you. You don't know what you don't know until you start doing as well. So that's another thing. Don't just sit there and try to absorb because you don't know what's relevant. Start, of course, learn something, but then take action on that. And then, oh, okay, I did this. And okay, now I realize that I'm missing this. I don't understand this. Let me go back and look at that and start applying that. And that keeps you in that do zone by learning and applying and having a measurable result there.
That's right.
Uh,
That's what it's all about, man. And it's a movement. I want to get people doing things, taking action, get yourself out of your comfort zone, get yourself into the do zone.
And where can people find that if they want to get to know more about the do zone, want to get to know more about you? Where's a good place for them?
Yep. You can go to thedozone.com. And there's a couple of items on there, thedozone.com/podcast, or you can just go to the website and click on podcast. I've got at this point 50, 60 episodes up, a lot of pretty good stuff, some pretty decent interviews, and some reasonably good solos. Don't go too far back though, because a little awkward, but yeah. That's probably the best place that you can go to really engage with me and just kind of learn more about how my brain works. If that really resonates with you, I'd love to connect in a deeper way if you're interested.
Yeah, well, awesome. Definitely. And make sure you go check that out. And that is like the do zone. That's not any kind of crazy, weird spelling or anything like that. So Josh is
Yeah.
pretty straightforward like that.
Yeah. When I first put the website together and I Googled it after I first put it, there's apparently some business called the Dough Zone, and I think it's like either a donut shop or like a pizza place. It's the Dough Zone. Don't go to the Dough Zone. It's the
Yeah. Or like Mountain Dew, right? DEW,
yeah,
the
no,
do
yeah.
zone. Yeah. Don't do that.
Yo.
Yeah, that won't work out. But all right, Josh, got one last question here for you. If you could only share one message for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
When this podcast episode ends, hit stop, get up, go do something.
Hmm.
That's
That's
it.
it. That's it. I love it, man. Just straightforward. Go through that do zone. Make sure you go back. And if you repeat them real quick for everybody so they know what that do zone is, what those
Certainly.
3 steps to be in that do zone.
There are 3 rules to follow in order. Number 1, you must be working on a relevant and current project. Number 2, that task must have an immediate and measurable outcome. And number 3, it must be objectively observable by a third party.
Love it. That do zone is so crucial. Make sure you go check that out at thedozone.com and make sure that you follow Josh. He shares plenty of knowledge through his podcast, through the do zone, obviously, and through all his social networks. So make sure you check him out. But Josh, man, really appreciate you coming on the show and bringing this value.
You got it, man. Anytime.